All right, let's start with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This past week, President Biden moved to outlaw any Russian oil imports. What is left in the American toolbox, or the worldwide toolbox for that matter, to apply any further pressure on Vladimir Putin, and is he susceptible to that? Let's talk about it with Michigan's senior senator, Senator Debbie Stabenow, joining us from the nation's capital. Senator, I so appreciate the time this morning. Let me say at the outset that you and I are recording this conversation and, of course, reacting to events as we know them right now, because it's a very changeable situation. But you just this past Thursday spent a lot of time talking to a lot of our allies in the European Union. You were on a call with President Zelensky earlier in the week. Give me your thoughts right now on whether or not we're doing all that we can, or is there anything left for us still to do in the United States to try to bring this to a peaceful closure of some kind?
Well, Devin, it's always great to be with you. I really appreciate your work. And let me just start by saying, I mean, that question is the question we are constantly working with people on. But I have to start out just by saying just what we all feel in terms of the devastation and the brutality of Putin and what's happening to the Ukrainian people. And it's unbelievable, unprovoked, horrible, and the courage that we see all the time of moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas and people who are fighting for their country. And it's clear that Putin totally underestimated the commitment of the Ukrainian people to fight for their freedom and for democracy. And that sure came through on the call with President Zelensky. Unbelievable. I mean, the sense of inspiration. We had Democrats and Republicans on that call, and we were on a Zoom, and we all came away just in awe of, on the one hand, the danger every moment that he is in, and the courage and the inspiration, and it's shown every day. And so the question is, we've got to do everything humanly possible to support them. And as you mentioned, I mean, we have stopped their strong economic sanctions, financial sanctions. We're looking to see, what else can be done there. But frankly, most of what has been done is what can be done, but we're open to other things that need to happen. And we are, I think, most importantly, working with our allies, because this really has an impact on Putin if it is done with all of our European allies. And so that's why the meeting that we had with all of them, all of the ambassadors, was equally amazing and inspirational, because there's not an inch of difference with anybody about what we are trying to do. We just passed this last week, almost a $14 billion package of aid to Ukraine, in addition to the weapons we've been providing and so on. About half of that humanitarian aid, the other half military aid. And as we are moving forward now, there are all the questions about the best way strategically to deal with what is happening on the bombings, how to equip the Ukrainians, talking with the Polish ambassador, talking to others about planes, but also hearing now about long-range missiles that may be as effective or more effective in addressing this. So it is a constant conversation about how fast we can get the things that will be most effective to protect the Ukrainians. And I have to say, it's astounding to me, the brutality and the planning of Putin to just wantonly kill people. I was on a call with Ukrainians from Michigan, and of course everyone's heartbroken and doing everything they can to send aid and to advocate and so on. But I was hearing about along the corridors where folks are trying to escape, that there are little, what they are calling butterfly mines, which are, it looks like plastic toys.
Right.
that the kids can pick up. And it's not enough to kill somebody, but it's enough to blow up your fingers. I mean, how cruel is that?
Well, Senator, unless I am completely lost on the definition of war crimes, that's what we're watching.
Yeah.
The position has been from most in Washington from the very get-go that we can't see putting American troops on the ground. And yet when you watch a maternity hospital blown apart, as we did this past week, is there any growing consideration that we need to do more than sanctions and money?
Well, we have to do everything we can in terms of weapons and support for Ukraine. We are in a very challenging situation with a madman, I think, who has nuclear weapons. And so, the challenge of, on the one hand, not starting World War III, which is actually not an impossible thing to see if we're not all working together carefully. And at the same time, we have to do everything we can to stop the killing and help the Ukrainians be able to stop the bloodshed that fighting for their country, fighting for their freedom. And so weapons are a part of that. Tactical weapons support, military aid in terms of supporting them. And they're saying to us, President Zelensky says, we'll fight the fight. We just need the tactical arms, the support, the military aid, and so on. And that's what we're doing.
All of this is going to, of course, have economic reverberations around the world. Right. We just watched last week Consumer Price Index coming out, jumping to its highest spot in the last 40 years. And to many economists' way of thinking, that doesn't even yet really start to figure in the impact of what's gone on over these last 2 weeks in Ukraine. Right. Are you convinced that the U.S. Is equipped both I guess with intestinal fortitude to watch these prices go higher if that's what it takes? And as a Democrat, are you ready for the accompanying criticism that's going to come that we're already hearing that the White House and the Democratic Party has been in denial too long that we are still very strongly attached to the IV of oil?
Well, certainly don't have to tell me that as the person leading the effort on electric vehicles. I mean, the best way, just think about when we fully get our electric vehicles being made in Michigan, you're going to drive right by the pump.
But, Senator, I drive an electric vehicle and the price of electricity jumped 8% too, right. Because so much of our electricity comes from fossil fuels.
That's true. Fair enough. That's true. Absolutely true. Which is why the whole strategy on clean energy is important. You're absolutely right. First of all, prices are way too high, and it's gas was bad enough before, but all the prices that are coming because of inflation that started because of the supply chain breakdowns we all know about, the chips and manufacturing and food supply breakdowns and all of that. And then now on top of this, certainly what's happening in Ukraine and so on. But I also want to just have a caveat here. The top 24 oil companies last year made $174 billion in profits. They have some 9,000 leases that the government has given them in the United States to drill that they're not using right now, which keeps supply down and prices up. And there's serious issues about the companies taking advantage of the situation and price gouging, which I think is going on and is going to continue to go on. And one of the things the White House is pushing back on strongly is that, if we have them as the American people are being asked to pay more at the pump because of the effort to support Ukraine against Putin and their fight for freedom, the oil companies should not be taking, the opportunity for collusion or price gouging. And I've talked to the head of the Federal Trade Commission, who is looking at a number of cases where they are seeing this going on right now. We produce more oil right now than any other place in the world. People don't realize that. And we have very little that comes in, about 3%.
And yet we've had to reach out to others. My political mentor taught me there's no such thing as permanent friends or permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And yet, do you think it was wise for the White House to reach out to Venezuela, with whom we're barely on speaking terms, and Saudi Arabia, who many people believe we should not be on speaking terms with. Is that where we should be turning for help?
Well, right now, right now we're in a situation where it's all hands on deck with the countries of the free world against what is happening with Putin, who literally, I think, is willing, to create a world war to try to take back what he views as elements of the Soviet Union. And so this is a very, very serious moment. But I will tell you that in terms of our saying we are not going to take Russian oil was more symbolic than what, because we don't use a lot of Russian oil. Now it's very different with our European allies, very, very different. And more courageous of them, frankly, in talking to the German ambassador and others when they say they're not going to, much more courageous. But the reality is that these prices are not set by the government. They're set by, the world markets, which are determined based on how much oil is being pumped, and our companies are not pumping as much as they could. There's more capacity in the United States, but we're opening strategic oil reserves, working with other countries, as you mentioned, to have more oil in the marketplace, so there's more supply. But the oil companies could be doing that too. There's actually legislation that's called use it or lose it. If you want those leases, you don't get to lease it, have the lease, hold on to it, so you can just stop more supply, so the price goes up, which is what is happening right now. I view major manipulation going on and price gouging. And so that's part of the pushback as we look at this. We don't need oil companies taking advantage of the horrible atrocities and what's happening in Ukraine and the world trying to support them. This is not the moment for them to take advantage of that. And
I got to get to a break. These are fraught times, and you've had some very sobering thoughts here, unfortunately, to share. I'm afraid. Hopefully, better news ahead soon. But I really appreciate you always as being with us on Flashpoint. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.